Min-Jun Kim, a 34-year-old Korean CEO and orphan who built KMJ Ventures into a billion-dollar empire, has spent his entire life perfecting the art of emotional detachment. Christmas is his personal nightmare, a painful reminder of the 7-year-old boy who was rejected by adoptive parents for being too damaged. Every December, he barricades himself in his sterile office, refusing to acknowledge the holiday that symbolizes everything he never had: family, belonging, and the dangerous vulnerability of hope. Then, Amara Okafor crashes into his world with a tower of cupcakes and audacious dreams. The 26-year-old Nigerian baker is brilliant, desperate, and technically illegal, an undocumented immigrant working 3 jobs while developing a revolutionary food preservation technique that could change the industry. When Min-Jun tastes her fusion desserts, Korean yuzu meeting Nigerian spices in perfect harmony, something cracks in his carefully constructed armor. He offers her a partnership, his resources and business expertise in exchange for her innovation. It should be purely transactional. But as they work side by side, transforming his empty kitchen into a space filled with flower and laughter and possibility, the boundaries between professional and personal begin to blur in ways that terrify them both. Their fragile partnership becomes a target when Min-Jun's ruthless rival discovers Amara's vulnerable immigration status and stolen patent research, weaponizing both to destroy everything they're building. Now they must fight corporate espionage, deportation threats, and their own fears of attachment. Can a man who learned that love means abandonment and a woman who's lost everything she knows find the courage to risk their hearts? Or will the system designed to keep them apart prove stronger than the connection pulling them together? Min-Jun Kim had perfected the art of ignoring Christmas. Every December, while Seoul transformed into a glittering wonderland of lights and artificial cheer, he remained barricaded in his steel and glass fortress on the 42nd floor of the KMJ Tower. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city's festive madness, but Min-Jun kept the blinds drawn. He had no interest in watching a world celebrate what he'd never had. His office was a study in minimalism. No family photos cluttered his desk. No sentimental trinkets adorned the shelves. Just clean lines, expensive furniture, and the cold blue glow of multiple monitors tracking his empire's pulse. KMJ Ventures had made him a billionaire by 32, but success had come at a price most people couldn't comprehend. Min-Jun had learned early that emotions were liabilities, attachments were weaknesses, and Christmas was the cruelest reminder of both. The elevator chimed at precisely 6:47 a.m. Min-Jun glanced up from his screen, irritation flickering across his angular features. His assistant knew better than to arrive before 7, but instead of Ji-woo's familiar bow, a young black woman burst through the doors, balancing a precarious tower of pink bakery boxes. She was chaos incarnate. Her natural hair escaped from beneath a flour-dusted beanie, wild curls framing a face lit with determination. She wore a patchwork apron over jeans and a sweater that had seen better days, and her sneakers squeaked against the marble floor as she stumbled, nearly losing her grip on the boxes. "Excuse me," Min-Jun said in English, his voice arctic. "This floor is private." The woman didn't even flinch. She marched straight to his desk, set down the boxes with a decisive thump, and fixed him with eyes that blazed like warm honey in sunlight. "I know. That's why I'm here." Min-Jun stood, his 6'2" frame meant to intimidate. It didn't work. The woman was already opening the top box, releasing a scent that hit him like a physical blow. Cinnamon. Brown sugar. Something darker, richer. His stomach betrayed him with an audible growl. "I'm Amara Okafor," she announced, producing a perfect cupcake topped with cream cheese frosting and a single candied orange peel. "And you're going to eat this." "Security," Minjun said flatly, reaching for his phone. Your building security let me up because I told them I'm interviewing for the executive chef position. Amara's smile was pure mischief. Which is technically true. I'm interviewing myself. Right now. There is no executive chef position. There should be. She pushed the cupcake across his desk. You work 18-hour days. Your employees order the same joyless salads from the same joyless restaurant. This building has a state-of-the-art kitchen on the 15th floor that nobody uses. It's criminal. Minjun stared at her, genuinely confused by her audacity. In his world, people bowed. They scheduled appointments. They certainly didn't break into his office at dawn with baked goods and unsolicited opinions. I'm calling security, he repeated. Fine. But eat the cupcake first. Amara leaned forward, her voice dropping to something almost gentle. When's the last time you tasted something that made you feel alive? The question struck something deep and uncomfortable in Minjun's chest. He should throw her out. He should have her arrested. Instead, his hand moved toward the cupcake as if guided by forces beyond his control. The first bite exploded across his tongue. It wasn't just flavor. It was memory. The spices transported him somewhere warm and bright, a place he'd never been but somehow recognized. The texture was impossibly light, yet deeply satisfying, and underneath it all was something he couldn't name, something that made his throat tight and his eyes sting. What is this? He demanded, his carefully maintained composure cracking. Amara's expression softened. Nigerian spiced orange cake with Korean yuzu cream cheese frosting. I call it the bridge. It's what happens when two worlds that seem totally different find common ground. Minjun took another bite, hating how much he wanted more. This is manipulation. This is chemistry. Amara pulled out a sleek folder, placing it beside the remaining boxes. I have a degree in food science from the University of Lagos. I've worked in kitchens across 3 continents, and I've developed something revolutionary. A line of desserts that reduce food waste by 30% while increasing flavor profiles by measurable metrics. Despite himself, Minjun's business instincts engaged. Impossible. Possible. Profitable. And patent pending, if I can afford the lawyers. Amara's confidence wavered for just a moment, revealing something vulnerable beneath her bold exterior. I need a partner. Someone with resources and distribution. You need someone to remind you that food isn't just fuel, it's connection, memory, joy. I'm not interested in joy, Minjun said, but his hand was already reaching for a second cupcake. Everyone's interested in joy. Some people just forgot how to recognize it. Amara started unpacking the other boxes, revealing an array of pastries that seemed to glow in the sterile office lighting. Chocolate cardamom cookies with gochugaru, hibiscus tarts with honey and black sesame, plantain bread with brown butter and cinnamon. Each name was a small poem. Each scent was a seduction. Minjun felt his carefully constructed walls shaking, and it terrified him. Why me? He asked abruptly. KMJ Ventures invests in technology, software, not cupcakes. Amara met his gaze with unsettling directness. Because 3 months ago, you gave a speech at the Global Innovation Summit about disrupting traditional industries. You said the next big revolution wouldn't come from Silicon Valley. It would come from someone brave enough to see value where others saw waste. She paused. I'm that someone. And this, she gestured at the pastries, is that revolution. I just need you to be brave enough to taste it. Minjun should say no. This woman was clearly unstable. Her business proposal was wrapped in flour and audacity. She'd literally broken into his office. Every logical instinct screamed that he should have her removed immediately. But he was holding a third cupcake, and for the first time in years, his office didn't feel like a tomb. One meeting. he heard himself say. 10 minutes. Bring actual data, not just desserts. Amara's smile could have powered the entire building. Tomorrow morning, same time. But I'm bringing desserts too. Data tastes better with sugar. She was halfway to the elevator when Min-jun called out, "How did you really get past security?" She turned, that mischievous glint back in her eyes. "I told them I was your Christmas miracle." The elevator doors closed on her laughter, leaving Min-jun alone with an empty cupcake wrapper and a feeling he absolutely refused to name. His phone buzzed. A message from building security. "Sir? Should we have stopped the bakery delivery?" Min-jun looked at the remaining boxes on his desk, at the crumbs on his fingers, at the faint imprint of flour on his previously pristine workspace. His finger hovered over the reply button. Instead, he took another bite of the bridge and admitted to himself that he was already looking forward to tomorrow morning. And that terrified him more than any hostile takeover ever had. Character count, 10,547. Amara arrived at 6:45 a.m. with her data and her desserts, prepared to fight for her dream. What she wasn't prepared for was Min-jun opening his office door before she could knock, already dressed in another impeccable suit, with dark circles under his eyes that suggested he'd slept as little as she had. "You're late," he said, which was objectively untrue. "You're early," she countered, slipping past him into the office. This time she noticed details she'd missed in yesterday's adrenaline rush. The office was bigger than her entire apartment. The view, now that the blinds were open, was breathtaking. But it was also completely devoid of warmth. No plants, no art, no evidence that a human being actually spent 70 hours a week in this space. "Your presentation," Min-jun said, settling behind his desk with the posture of a man preparing for battle. Amara opened her laptop, projecting graphs and charts onto his wall screen. Traditional commercial baking wastes 42% of ingredients through overproduction, spoilage, and trimming. My process uses predictive algorithms to optimize batch sizes, temperature curves that maximize flavor development while minimizing energy use, and a preservation technique that extends shelf life by 300% without chemical additives. Min-jun leaned forward, his sharp eyes scanning the data. "How?" "Controlled fermentation using naturally occurring bacteria strains I isolated from Nigerian sourdough starters. The same microbes that give artisanal bread its complex flavor also produce compounds that inhibit mold growth." Amara clicked to the next slide, showing side-by-side comparisons. "Taste tests show consumers prefer my products over standard commercial baking by a 78% margin. Cost analysis shows a 40% reduction in ingredient expenses. And the patent?" Amara's confidence faltered. "Filed, not yet approved. I've been working with a patent attorney, but the fees are beyond my current budget." "How far beyond?" $30,000 beyond. She forced herself to meet his gaze. "I'm working 3 jobs. I have about 8,000 saved. At my current rate, I'll have the full amount in about 2 years, assuming nothing goes wrong. And if something goes wrong?" Amara thought of her expired visa, the immigration lawyer she couldn't afford, the constant low-grade terror of deportation. "Then I lose everything and start over in Lagos." Min-jun was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said something that changed everything. "I'll cover the patent fees. In exchange, KMJ Ventures gets 40% equity in your company." Amara's heart hammered. "I don't have a company. I have a technique and a dream. Then we'll build the company. Together." Min-jun pulled up a document on his screen. "I'll provide capital, legal resources, and distribution channels. You provide the product and the expertise. We launch a pilot program using KMJ Tower as a test market. If it succeeds, we scale nationally within 18 months. It was everything Amara had hoped for. It was also completely terrifying. "Why would you do this?" Min-jun's jaw tightened. "Because you're right. I gave that speech about disruption and innovation. It's time I backed up those words with action. That's not why. Amara saw something flicker in his eyes, something wounded and quickly hidden. You ate 4 cupcakes yesterday. I counted the wrappers in your trash. That's not relevant. It's completely relevant. She closed her laptop, abandoning her prepared pitch. You said this was manipulation, but I think you're scared it might be something else. I'm not scared of cupcakes. You're scared of feeling something. Amara's voice gentled. Who hurt you so badly that joy became dangerous? The question hung in the air between them. For a moment, Minjun's mask slipped, and Amara saw the raw pain underneath. Then it was gone, replaced by cold professionalism. My personal history isn't part of this negotiation, he said. Do you want the deal or not? Amara should take it. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. But she found herself saying, I want to know who I'm partnering with, not the CEO. The person. There is no person. There's only the CEO. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Minjun stood abruptly, walking to the windows. His reflection in the glass looked like a ghost. I grew up in an orphanage. I aged out at 18 with nothing but a scholarship and a chip on my shoulder. I built KMJ from nothing because I had no safety net, no family to catch me if I fell. I learned that emotional attachment is a luxury people like me can't afford. Amara's chest ached. And Christmas? Christmas is when everyone else got visitors. When families came to consider adoption, they wanted cute toddlers, not angry teenagers. His voice was carefully flat, but his hands were fisted at his sides. I learned to hate December. I'm sorry, Amara said quietly. I don't want your pity. Good, because I'm not offering it. She joined him at the window, maintaining a respectful distance. I'm offering you a partnership, business, and, she hesitated, maybe friendship, if you'll let me. Minjun turned to look at her, really look at her for the first time. Why? What do you get out of this besides a business deal? Honestly? I'm lonely too. Amara surprised herself with the admission. I left everything I knew to chase this dream. My family thinks I'm crazy. I have no legal status here, no real friends, no support system. I work myself into exhaustion because if I stop moving, I'll have to face how terrifying this all is. Something shifted in Minjun's expression. Recognition. The cupcakes aren't just about flavor, are they? They're about connection, about creating moments where people feel something good, even if just for a few minutes. Amara smiled sadly. I learned to bake from my grandmother. She used to say that food is love made visible. After she died, baking was the only way I could still feel close to her. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for yours too, even if you won't admit it's a loss. They stood in silence, two lonely people in a tower above a city preparing for a holiday. Neither of them wanted to celebrate. Outside, snow began to fall, dusting Seoul in white. If we do this, Minjun said carefully, it's strictly business. I'll provide resources. You'll provide product. We'll maintain professional boundaries. Of course, Amara agreed, even as something in her chest whispered that professional boundaries were already crumbling. We'll need a workspace. The 15th floor kitchen will serve as your development lab. I'll have it updated to your specifications. And testing? We can't launch without extensive consumer trials. We'll start with KMJ employees. 500 potential customers, representative demographic spread. Minjun was already pulling up calendars, scheduling meetings. We'll need branding, packaging, marketing materials. I have sketches, Amara said, excitement building. The logo concept, flavor profiles, everything. Show me. They worked through lunch, through dinner, through the moment when the building's lights dimmed and they realized they were the only people still there. Amara's sketches covered Minjun's pristine desk. Empty coffee cups multiplied. And somewhere in those hours, something fragile began to form between them. It's almost midnight, Minjun said, startling them both. Amara stretched, her back protesting. I should go. Early shift at the cafe tomorrow. Quit, she laughed. I need to eat. I'll put you on salary, immediately. 50,000 a year to start, plus equity. Min-jun was already drafting the offer letter. You'll need to work full-time if we're launching in 6 months. 6 months? Amara's eyes widened. I thought you said 18 months to scale nationally. I said 18 months to scale nationally. 6 months to prove concept with a flagship location. He sent her the offer letter. I don't move slowly. Amara stared at her phone, at the number that represented more money than she'd made in the last 2 years combined. This is insane. This is business. This is you being generous and pretending it's strategy. Min-jun's expression shuddered. Don't confuse business investment with charity. I won't. But I also won't pretend I don't see what you're doing. Amara grabbed her coat, suddenly overwhelmed. Thank you for believing in me, in this. The data supports the investment. The data supports a cautious pilot program, not a full-speed launch with a generous salary. She paused at the door. You can admit you want this to succeed. It won't make you weak. After she left, Min-jun stood alone in his office, surrounded by flour-dusted sketches and empty bakery boxes. His phone buzzed with a message from Amara. See you tomorrow, partner. And for the record, hope isn't weakness. It's courage. Min-jun typed and deleted 3 responses before finally settling on 6:30 a.m. Don't be late. He didn't mention that he'd been smiling. Character count, 10,532. 3 weeks into their partnership, Amara discovered that Min-jun was pathologically incapable of relaxation. The 15th floor kitchen had been transformed into a state-of-the-art development lab, complete with every piece of equipment she'd ever dreamed of owning. The problem was that Min-jun treated it like another corporate conquest rather than a creative space. The hibiscus tarts need to be 9% more cost-effective, he announced, appearing in the kitchen at 5:30 a.m. with a spreadsheet. Amara, elbow-deep in sourdough starter, didn't even look up. The hibiscus tarts need to taste like happiness. That's not on your spreadsheet. Happiness doesn't show up in quarterly earnings reports. Then your quarterly earnings reports are missing vital data. She wiped her hands and crossed to where he stood, rigid in his suit. When's the last time you actually tasted what we're making? I review the samples daily. You analyze them. You don't taste them. Amara grabbed a still warm tart from the cooling rack. Open. Min-jun's eyes widened. Excuse me? Your mouth. Open it. I'm feeding you properly, not watching you dissect food like it's a hostile witness. This is unprofessional. This is essential. Now open, or I'm adding refuses to eat pastries to your Wikipedia page. Despite himself, Min-jun's lips quirked. He opened his mouth, and Amara placed the tart on his tongue, her fingers lingering just a moment too long. She watched his expression shift. Surprise, pleasure, something deeper that he quickly tried to hide. Well, she prompted. It's acceptable. Min-jun. Truth. He exhaled slowly. It tastes like summer in Lagos. How do you do that? Because I'm thinking about summer in Lagos when I make them. I'm thinking about my grandmother's garden, the hibiscus flowers that grew by her gate, the way the air smelled after rain. Amara's voice softened. Food is memory. You can't engineer that with spreadsheets. Something cracked in Min-jun's armor. Teach me. What? Teach me to taste the way you do, to see food as more than nutrients and profit margins. He looked almost embarrassed. The employee testing begins next week. I should understand what we're selling. Amara studied him, this complicated man who'd given her everything she needed while insisting he felt nothing. Okay, but we do this my way. No spreadsheets, no efficiency metrics, just you, me, and food. I have 17 meetings today. Cancel them. I can't just... You own the company. You can do whatever you want. Amara started gathering ingredients. Today, you're learning to bake. Really bake. Not supervise or strategize. Actually get your hands dirty. Minjun looked at his suit as if it were armor he was being asked to remove. Then, to Amara's shock, he said, "Where do I start?" 2 hours later, Minjun's suit jacket hung on a chair. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and his hands were covered in flour. He was attempting to fold dough with the same intense focus he applied to corporate negotiations, and failing spectacularly. "You're strangling it," Amara said, laughing. "Dough needs a gentle touch." "I don't do gentle. Try." She moved behind him, placing her hands over his, guiding his movements. "Feel the texture. It should be soft but elastic, like it's alive." Minjun froze at her touch, his breath catching. "This is highly irregular. This is how you learn." Amara didn't move away, and neither did he. Baking is about intuition. You have to feel what the dough needs. I prefer data. I know, but sometimes the best things can't be measured. She guided his hands through another fold. "My grandmother used to say that bread knows when it's being made with love. It rises better. That's not scientifically sound. Probably not, but it's true anyway." Amara finally stepped back, immediately missing the warmth of being close to him. "Now you try alone." Minjun worked in silence for several minutes, his brow furrowed in concentration. Gradually, his movements became less mechanical, more fluid. When he finally looked up, there was something like wonder in his eyes. "I've never made anything with my hands before," he admitted. "Everything I've built has been through screens and contracts." "How does it feel?" "Terrifying. And..." He hesitated. "Good." They worked side by side as dawn turned to morning outside the windows. Minjun proved to be a surprisingly quick study once he stopped trying to control every variable. Amara taught him to knead by feel, to judge oven temperature by scent, to understand that baking was as much art as science. "Why December?" Amara asked as they waited for croissants to proof. "Why do you hate Christmas specifically?" Minjun was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "When I was 7, a couple came to the orphanage on Christmas Eve. They spent an hour with me, asked me about my favorite foods, my dreams, what I wanted to be when I grew up. I thought they were going to adopt me." Amara's heart cracked. "They didn't. They chose a younger child instead. I heard the director tell them I was too damaged from my early years. Whatever that meant." He stared at the proofing dough. "I learned that Christmas was when you realize you're not what people want. That you're fundamentally wrong somehow." "You're not wrong," Amara said fiercely. "Those people were wrong. The system was wrong. But you? You're brilliant and driven and successful beyond anything that 7-year-old could have imagined. Successful and alone. By choice. Is it a choice if it's self-preservation?" Amara reached for his hand, flour-dusted and warm. "What if you let someone in? Just once. Just to see what happens." Minjun looked at their joined hands like they were a miracle and a threat. "I don't know how. Neither do I, really. But maybe we could figure it out together." The timer chimed. The moment broke. But when Minjun pulled the croissants from the oven, golden and perfect, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his entire face. "I made these," he said, almost childlike in his amazement. "You did. And they're beautiful." He turned to her, something vulnerable and terrified in his eyes. "Amara, I need to tell you something. This partnership, it's become..." He struggled for words. "Complicated." "I know." "You know? I'm falling for you too, Minjun. It's wildly unprofessional and possibly catastrophic for our business relationship. But I can't seem to stop." The relief on his face was immediate and overwhelming. "I thought I was alone in this." "You're not alone. Not anymore. He stepped closer, flour on his cheek, his carefully maintained distance finally crumbling. I have no idea what I'm doing. That makes two of us. I'll probably ruin this. I ruin everything good. Or, Amara reached up to brush flour from his face, maybe you'll learn that you deserve good things. Minjun caught her hand, pressing it against his cheek. I want to try. With you. If you'll be patient with me. I can be patient? He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their first kiss tasted like butter and sugar and hope. Sweet and terrifying and perfect. When they finally broke apart, Minjun was smiling again. This is highly irregular. Get used to it. Amara laughed. I'm planning to be highly irregular for the foreseeable future. I don't know how to be in a relationship. We'll figure it out. Together. For the first time in his life, Minjun allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could have something real. But as they stood in that kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of their shared creation, neither of them knew that someone was watching, that their partnership had attracted dangerous attention, that everything they were building was about to be threatened by forces they couldn't control. Minjun's phone buzzed. A message from his head of security. Unusual activity detected. Someone's been asking questions about your new venture. Recommend immediate review. The smile faded from his face. We have a problem. Character count, 10,543. The threat materialized in the form of Jung Tae-hwan, Minjun's chief rival and the CEO of Hanseong Industries. They'd been enemies since business school, when Tae-hwan had stolen Minjun's thesis proposal and turned it into a $1 million startup. That Minjun had built an even bigger empire didn't diminish the betrayal. We have a leak, Minjun said grimly, pulling up security footage on his office screen. Amara sat beside him, her stomach churning. Someone's been feeding Tae-hwan information about your formula. The footage showed a young woman in a KMJ uniform sneaking into the 15th floor kitchen after hours, photographing Amara's notebooks. That's Soo-jin, Amara whispered, one of the test kitchen assistants. She said she wanted to learn from me. She wanted to steal from you. Minjun's voice was cold fury. Tae-hwan filed a patent application yesterday for a revolutionary food preservation technique using naturally occurring bacteria. Sound familiar? Amara felt the world tilt. That's my formula, my research. I spent 3 years developing that. I know. And now Hansong Industries is claiming they invented it first. Minjun pulled up legal documents. They're moving fast. If their patent gets approved before yours, they own it. Can they do that? They just did. Minjun was already on the phone with his lawyers. We'll fight it, obviously, but patent litigation can take years and cost millions. And in the meantime, everything we've built means nothing. Amara felt tears burning. I should have been more careful. I should have protected the research better. This isn't your fault. Tae-hwan has been sabotaging my ventures for a decade. I should have anticipated this. But Amara barely heard him. She was staring at another email that had just arrived on her phone. From U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Her hands shook as she read it. Then read it again, hoping the words would change. Amara. Minjun noticed her expression. What is it? I'm being investigated. Her voice came from far away. Someone reported me for working without proper documentation. They're scheduling a hearing. If I can't prove legal status, I'll be deported within 30 days. The color drained from Minjun's face. Tae-hwan. You don't know that. I absolutely know that. This is exactly his style. He can't beat us fairly, so he destroys us personally. Minjun was already typing, calling in every favor he had. I'll get you the best immigration lawyer in the country. We'll fight this. With what case? I overstayed my student visa by 18 months. I've been working under the table. Minjun, I broke the law. Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. I was desperate. I thought if I could just establish the business, prove my value, I could find a path to legitimate status. But I ran out of time. We'll find a way. There is no way. Even your lawyers can't change immigration law. Amara stood, pacing. I have to go back to Nigeria. Restart everything there. Maybe we can still partner remotely somehow, if Taiwan doesn't steal everything first. I'm not letting you go. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Minjun's jaw set with determination. We'll file an O1 visa application for individuals with extraordinary abilities. Your food science research qualifies. Those take months to process. I have 30 days. Then we'll file for an emergency expedite. We'll document every innovation, every patent application, every piece of evidence that proves you're irreplaceable. Minjun, Amara's voice broke. You're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a long shot for someone you've known for less than a month. Why would you do that? He crossed to her, taking her face in his hands. Because I love you. The words hung in the air between them, fragile and fierce. You can't love me, Amara whispered. You said you don't know how. I didn't. Until you. Minjun's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You walked into my office with your cupcakes and your audacity, and you didn't just change my business plan. You changed everything. I spent 34 years building walls, and you demolished them in 3 weeks. That's not love. That's just chemistry. It's both, and it terrifies me. But losing you terrifies me more. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Stay. Fight this with me. Let me help you. Amara wanted to say yes. She wanted it so badly it hurt, but she'd learned not to trust fairy tales. What if it doesn't work? What if we spend everything and I still get deported? You'll have lost your business opportunity and I'll have dragged you down with me. Then we'll start over, in Lagos, together. She pulled back, stunned. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. Minjun's voice was steady, certain. You think I care more about KMJ Ventures than I care about you? I built this company because I had nothing else. But now I have something else, someone else, and I'm not letting bureaucracy steal that from me. You'd give up everything? Your company, your life here, everything you've built? Without hesitation. Amara stared at him, this man who'd claimed to feel nothing, offering to sacrifice everything. You're insane. Probably. Is it working? Despite everything, she laughed. Unfortunately, yes. They stood in the wreckage of their dreams, holding each other like lifelines. Outside, Seoul glittered with Christmas lights, oblivious to their crisis. What do we do? Amara finally asked. We fight, on every front. Minjun was already strategizing. Immigration lawyers for your case, patent lawyers to challenge Taiwan's filing, and we accelerate the product launch. If we can prove market success before the hearing, it strengthens your O1 application. That's 3 impossible battles at once. Then we'd better get started. Over the next 2 weeks, they worked around the clock. Minjun hired a team of immigration specialists who buried ice in paperwork, documenting Amara's qualifications. They filed affidavits from food science experts worldwide attesting to her innovations. They documented every test result, every formula, every piece of evidence that proved her technique was genuine and groundbreaking. Simultaneously, they prepared for the product launch. The employee testing had been overwhelmingly positive. Now they were scaling up, turning the 15th floor kitchen into a production facility, hiring staff, developing packaging and branding. And every moment they could steal, they spent together, learning each other, building something fragile and fierce between them. "I've never had this," Minjun admitted one night as they worked side by side, perfecting recipes. "Someone who sees me. Not the CEO, not the success story. Just me. I see you," Amara promised. "All of you. The brilliant parts and the broken parts. What if the broken parts are too damaged? Then they're my favorite parts, because they're what made you who you are." But even as they grew closer, the threats multiplied. Taiwan leaked stories to business media claiming Minjun had stolen his trade secrets. Immigration enforcement increased surveillance on Amara. The patent office scheduled a hearing to determine priority of invention. 3 days before Amara's immigration hearing, everything collapsed. Minjun's head lawyer called with devastating news. Hansong Industries has evidence that they filed patent applications in South Korea 6 months before Amara's U.S. application. If they can prove independent invention, they win priority. "That's impossible," Amara said. "I developed this technique in Lagos 2 years ago. There's no way Taiwan—" She stopped, remembering. "What?" Minjun saw her expression change. Sujin, the assistant who was spying. She worked in Hansong's R&D department before coming to KMJ. Amara's voice was hollow. "She didn't just steal my current research. She must have stolen my early notes when I first arrived in Seoul, the ones I kept in my apartment while I was looking for lab space. They've been planning this for over a year," Minjun realized. "Waiting until we were close to launch to strike." The betrayal was suffocating. Amara felt her dreams crumbling to dust. "We can still fight," Minjun insisted. "We'll bring fraud charges. We'll prove the timeline. With what evidence? My early notebooks were stolen. All I have is my word against a multi-billion-dollar corporation." Amara felt exhaustion crushing her. "Maybe this is a sign. Maybe I should just go home. This is your home. Is it? I'm fighting to stay in a country that doesn't want me, protecting work that's being stolen, building a relationship with someone who—" She stopped herself, but the damage was done. "Someone who what?" Minjun's voice was dangerously quiet. "Someone who might wake up one day and realize I was just another business mistake." The hurt on his face was immediate and profound. "Is that really what you think? That you're a business mistake? I think I'm a complication you don't need. And maybe it would be easier for both of us if I just left." "Easier?" Minjun's laugh was bitter. "You think losing you would be easier? I think you survived alone for 34 years. You'll survive this too." "I don't want to just survive anymore. You taught me that. You taught me that there's more to life than just getting through it." He grabbed her shoulders, desperate. "Don't give up on us." "I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic." "You're being scared." "Of course I'm scared. I'm losing everything." Amara's composure finally broke. "My work, my future, my chance to stay in this country, and now apparently my relationship with the only person who's ever made me feel like I belonged somewhere. So yes, Minjun, I'm terrified." They stared at each other, two people drowning in problems they couldn't solve. "The hearing is in 3 days," Amara said quietly. "If I lose, I have 72 hours to leave the country. We should probably start preparing for that reality." "I don't accept that reality." "You might not have a choice." Minjun pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. "Then we make the next 3 days count, and we go to that hearing and we fight with everything we have. Together." Amara buried her face in his chest, breathing him in. "And if we lose?" "Then we figure out what comes next, but we do it together." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that love could overcome immigration law and corporate sabotage and every impossible obstacle between them, but belief was a luxury she could no longer afford. Character count, 10,544. The immigration hearing was scheduled for December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on Min Jun. He arrived at the federal building with a team of lawyers, briefcases full of documentation, and a bone-deep terror that no amount of preparation could ease. Amara sat beside him in the waiting room, wearing a borrowed suit that made her look like she was dressed for her own funeral. "I should have worn my apron," she whispered. "At least then I'd feel like myself." Min Jun squeezed her hand. "You are yourself. Brilliant, talented, irreplaceable. We'll see what the judge thinks." Her name was called. They stood, and as they walked into the hearing room, Min Jun made himself a promise. If they lost today, he'd spend the rest of his life finding a way to bring her back, even if it took years, even if it took everything he had. The hearing was brutal. The ICE attorney presented their case with clinical efficiency: overstayed visa, unauthorized employment, no legal pathway to status adjustment, cut and dried, black and white. Then Min Jun's lawyers presented their counter: the O1 Extraordinary Ability Visa petition. They called expert witnesses who testified to Amara's groundbreaking research. They presented patents pending in 3 countries. They showed economic impact projections proving her innovation could create hundreds of jobs. But the ICE attorney had done their homework too. "Your Honor," they said smoothly, "Ms. Okafor's patent applications are currently contested by Hanseong Industries, a respected Korean corporation that claims prior invention. If she doesn't actually own the intellectual property she's claiming as evidence of extraordinary ability, her entire petition is built on fraudulent grounds." Amara felt the room spin. Taiwan had coordinated the attacks perfectly. The patent challenge wasn't just about stealing her work, it was about destroying her immigration case. Additionally, the attorney continued, Ms. Okafor's relationship with Mr. Kim raises questions about the legitimacy of this petition. They began a romantic relationship shortly after her business proposal was accepted. It's not unreasonable to question whether this extraordinary ability visa is simply an attempt to circumvent marriage-based immigration. "That's ridiculous," Min Jun burst out, earning a sharp look from the judge. "Mr. Kim," the judge said, "you'll have your chance to testify. Sit down." The next hour was agony. Min Jun testified about Amara's qualifications, but every answer felt like it was being twisted against them. Yes, they were in a relationship. Yes, he was financially supporting her. Yes, he stood to profit if her patent was approved. The judge was impossible to read. Finally, after what felt like years, she spoke. "I'm going to take this under advisement. You'll have my decision within 48 hours. Until then, Ms. Okafor, you are not to leave the Greater Seoul area. This hearing is adjourned." They walked out in stunned silence. 48 hours. 2 days to find out if Amara would be deported. Right in the middle of Christmas. "We should prepare for the worst," Amara said numbly as they stood on the steps of the federal building. Snow was falling, gentle and cruel. "I need to book a flight, pack my things." "You heard the judge. You can't leave until she decides." "After she decides, Min Jun. After she orders me deported." "She might not." "She will. You saw how that went in there. The patent challenge undermines everything, and our relationship just makes it look like I'm manipulating you for a green card." Min Jun pulled her close, oblivious to the lawyers and strangers around them. "I don't care what it looks like. I know the truth. You're not manipulating me. You're saving me. I'm destroying you." Amara's voice cracked. "Taiwan is using me to get to you. Your reputation, your business, everything you've built is being damaged because of me." I don't care about my reputation. You should, because I do. She pulled away, something breaking in her eyes. I can't watch you sacrifice everything for me. It's not fair. Life isn't fair. Exactly. And maybe the fairest thing I can do is let you go before I drag you down further. Amara, don't. I need some space, Minjun. Just for a day or two. To think clearly without you making me believe impossible things might be possible. She walked away before he could stop her, and Minjun stood in the snow, watching the only person he'd ever loved disappear into the December twilight. The next 24 hours were the worst of Minjun's life. Amara wouldn't answer his calls. His lawyers couldn't predict the judge's decision. And Taiwan was everywhere on business news, giving interviews about his revolutionary food preservation technique, the one he'd stolen from Amara. Minjun wanted to burn it all down. The company, the city, everything that had failed to protect the one person who mattered. Instead, he did something he'd never done before. He went to see Taiwan. Hansung Industries' headquarters was all marble and chrome, a monument to ego and excess. Taiwan's receptionist looked shocked when Minjun appeared unannounced. "Tell him I'm here," Minjun said flatly. "He'll want to see me." 5 minutes later, he was in Taiwan's office, facing his old enemy. "Minjun," Taiwan said with false warmth. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Drop the patent challenge." "Why would I do that?" "Because I'll pay you $10 million, right now, for a full retraction and public admission that Amara Okafor is the original inventor." Taehwan laughed. 10 million? The value of her technique is easily worth 10 times that once we scale it commercially. 20 million. No. 50 million. Taehwan's smile was poison. "It's not about money, old friend. It's about watching you lose something you actually care about." For once, Minjun felt rage crystallizing into something cold and focused. "You're doing this to hurt me. I'm doing this because you need to learn that you can't win everything, that some things are beyond even your control." Taiwan leaned back in his chair. "You took my thesis. You built an empire on my ideas, and now I'm taking something from you. We're even. I didn't take your thesis. The professor rejected it because it was fundamentally flawed. You were always too arrogant to accept that. And you were always too arrogant to accept that you're not invincible." Taiwan's expression hardened. "The patent challenge stands. The immigration hearing will go against her, and you'll lose her, just like you lose everything when it actually matters." Minjun stood, every muscle vibrating with controlled fury. "You're making a mistake." "No, Minjun. You made the mistake. You fell in love. Didn't anyone teach you that love is just a weakness waiting to be exploited?" Minjun left without another word, but as he stood in the elevator, descending from Taiwan's tower, something clicked into place in his mind. A dangerous idea, a last desperate gamble. He called his head lawyer. "I need you to prepare a press conference for tomorrow morning." "Sir, the judge hasn't ruled yet. Any public statements could jeopardize—" "I don't care. Set it up." That night, Minjun sat alone in his office, staring at the pastry boxes that still accumulated on his desk despite everything. Amara had kept sending them, even after their fight, little messages of love and defiance, spelled out in sugar and butter. His phone buzzed. A text from Amara. "I'm sorry for pushing you away. I'm just scared." He typed back, "I'm scared too, but I'm not giving up on us. Trust me, one more day." What happens in one more day? Either everything changes or nothing matters anymore. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be true. There was a long pause. Then, "I love you, whatever happens." "I love you too. And I'm about to prove it in a way that will probably make you furious." Min-jun, what are you planning? But he didn't answer, because what he was planning was insane, career-ending, potentially illegal, and absolutely necessary. The next morning, every major news outlet in South Korea received an invitation to a press conference at KMJ Tower. The subject, a statement on corporate fraud and immigration justice. Tae-hwan saw the announcement and smiled. Min-jun was going to go down swinging. It would be entertaining to watch. Amara saw the announcement and felt dread settle in her stomach. She called Min-jun 17 times. He didn't answer. At 10 a.m., Min-jun stood before a room full of cameras and reporters. He looked like he hadn't slept. He probably hadn't. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice steady, despite the chaos he was about to unleash. "I'm here to discuss the ongoing patent dispute between KMJ Ventures and Hanseong Industries. Specifically, to present evidence that Hanseong Industries committed corporate espionage, theft of intellectual property, and conspiracy to commit immigration fraud." The room erupted. Tae-hwan, watching from his office, stopped smiling. Min-jun pulled up slides, emails from Soo-jin detailing her theft, security footage showing her meeting with Hanseong executives, financial records proving she'd been paid for the stolen research. It was all there. Every piece of evidence his security team had gathered over the past 2 weeks. Additionally, Min-jun continued, "I have evidence that Jung Tae-hwan personally contacted ICE to report Ms. Okafor's immigration status, not as a concerned citizen, but as a calculated attack designed to eliminate business competition." More slides. More emails. A recording of Tae-hwan bragging to an associate about his strategy. "This isn't just corporate rivalry," Min-jun said, looking directly into the cameras. "This is a systematic attempt to destroy an innocent woman's life and career because she had the audacity to be brilliant, because she threatened the status quo, and because someone like me made the mistake of caring about her more than I care about protecting my reputation." The reporters were frantically typing, filming, recording. This was the business story of the year. "I'm calling for a full investigation into Hanseong Industries' business practices," Min-jun concluded. "And I'm putting KMJ Ventures' full legal and financial resources behind Ms. Okafor's defense. Not because she's my business partner, not because she might be profitable, but because it's right, and because some things matter more than quarterly earnings reports." He stepped away from the podium, leaving chaos in his wake. Within an hour, Hanseong Industries' stock had dropped 12%. Tae-hwan was fielding calls from his board of directors, from prosecutors, from panicked investors. And Amara stood in her apartment, watching the press conference on her phone, tears streaming down her face. Her phone rang. Min-jun. "You magnificent idiot," she said, her voice breaking. "You just committed corporate suicide on live television." "Probably. Worth it?" "Min-jun, this doesn't fix anything. The judge could still rule against me tomorrow." "I know, but at least now the world knows the truth. And if you have to leave, you leave knowing that someone fought for you, that you mattered enough to burn it all down." "You're insane. You've mentioned that before. I love you." "I know. Now come to my office. We're finishing that batch of Christmas cookies whether the world is ending or not." "The world is ending." "Then we should definitely have cookies." Despite everything, Amara laughed. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I'll be waiting." As Min-jun hung up, his CFO appeared in the doorway, looking shell-shocked. "Sir, the board wants an emergency meeting. The shareholders are in uproar. We could lose 40% of our market value over this. Then we lose 40%. Min-jun returned to his desk, pulling out baking supplies he'd secretly stockpiled. "Some things are more important than market value." "Like what?" "Like love, like truth, like proving that the 7-year-old in the orphanage who thought he was too damaged to be wanted was wrong." Min-jun looked up, and his eyes were clear. "I've spent my entire life being what everyone else needed. Just once, I want to be what I need. And I need her. The CFO left, probably to update their resume. But Min-jun didn't care. He was done living a half-life. Done pretending that success without connection meant anything. Tomorrow the judge would rule. Tomorrow he might lose everything. But tonight he had Amara and flour and a stubborn refusal to accept that love wasn't worth fighting for. It would have to be enough. Character count, 10,540. Christmas Eve morning arrived with crystalline clarity. Seoul was wrapped in fresh snow, the city quiet in that suspended moment before the holiday truly began. Amara woke in Min-jun's penthouse, in his bed, wrapped in his arms, knowing that in a few hours the judge would rule on her fate. They'd spent the previous night baking, not talking about the hearing, not strategizing, just creating. Cookies and cakes and pastries filled every surface of Min-jun's kitchen. It looked like a bakery had exploded. It looked like hope made tangible. "Whatever happens today," Min-jun said softly, his breath warm against her neck, "I want you to know something. Don't." Amara turned to face him. "Don't say goodbye. Not yet. I was going to say that you changed my life. That before you I was just existing, surviving. And now I'm actually living." He traced her face with gentle fingers. "That's not goodbye. That's thank you." Amara's phone buzzed. A text from Min-jun's lawyer. "Judge's office called. Ruling ready at 10 a.m. She wants both parties present. 2 hours. They had 2 hours until everything either began or ended. They dressed in silence, the weight of anticipation crushing. Min-jun wore his armor, the perfectly tailored suit, the expensive watch, the mask of the CEO, but his hands shook as he knotted his tie. "Let me," Amara said, stepping close to fix it. "There. Perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm terrified. Good. That means you're human." They arrived at the federal building at 9:45. Min-jun's lawyers were already there, along with a surprise. A crowd of protesters holding signs. "Let Amara stay. Innovation has no borders. Justice for immigrants." "What is this?" Amara whispered. Min-jun looked equally shocked. "I don't know." A young woman approached, holding a sign that read, "Amara's cupcakes changed my life." She had tears in her eyes. "I'm Jiwon. I work at KMJ. I was in the employee testing group. Your desserts. They reminded me why I love food, why I love cooking. I've been eating joylessly for years, and you gave me that joy back." She gestured at the crowd. "We all wanted to thank you, and to fight for you." More people came forward. KMJ employees, food bloggers who'd heard about the stolen patent, students from culinary schools, even a few Korean grandmothers who'd somehow heard about the case and decided that any young woman who could bake properly deserved to stay. Amara couldn't speak. Min-jun pulled her close, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "You're not alone," he whispered. "You were never alone." At 10 a.m. they entered the hearing room. The judge looked exactly as stern as she had 2 days ago, her expression revealing nothing. "I've reviewed all evidence and testimony," she began. "This is an unusual case. The legal issues are complicated by the ongoing patent dispute, the relationship between petitioner and sponsor, and the timing of the extraordinary ability petition." Amara felt Min-jun's hand find hers under the table. "However," the judge continued, "after careful consideration, I find that Ms. Okafor has presented compelling evidence of extraordinary ability in her field. The fact that her intellectual property is being contested doesn't diminish her role as its creator. If anything, the extreme measures taken to steal her work suggest its exceptional value." Hope flickered. Amara didn't dare breathe. Furthermore, the evidence presented by Mr. Kim regarding corporate espionage and deliberate interference with these proceedings has been forwarded to federal prosecutors. If Hansong Industries coordinated the ICE complaint as a business tactic, that represents a serious abuse of immigration enforcement. The ICE attorney looked decidedly uncomfortable. Therefore, the judge said, I am approving Ms. Okafor's O-1 visa petition, contingent on continued employment in her field of expertise. Ms. Okafor, you have 3 years of legal status, renewable if you continue to demonstrate extraordinary ability. The room erupted. Minjun crushed Amara against him, his whole body shaking with relief. Lawyers were shaking hands. Someone was crying. Additionally, the judge added, silencing the room, I am recommending that the Patent Office expedite their investigation into the priority dispute. The evidence suggests clear fraud on the part of Hansong Industries. It was everything. It was more than they dared hope for. Outside, the protesters cheered when Minjun and Amara emerged. Strangers hugged them. Camera crews filmed the celebration. And in his office across the city, Taiwan watched his empire begin to crumble as prosecutors opened their investigation. But Amara barely noticed any of it. She was too busy kissing Minjun, right there on the steps of the federal building, while snow fell around them like benediction. Merry Christmas, he said against her lips. I thought you hated Christmas. I'm reconsidering my position. They went back to KMJ Tower, to the 15th floor kitchen that had become their sanctuary. The crowd of employees who'd protested followed, and someone suggested they should celebrate properly, so they did. Amara taught a room full of corporate executives and assistants and security guards how to decorate Christmas cookies. Minjun, still in his suit, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up, demonstrated the proper folding technique for croissant dough to a fascinated intern. It was chaos. It was beautiful. It was everything Christmas was supposed to be, and everything Minjun had never experienced. You're smiling, Amara observed, bumping his shoulder with hers. It's disturbing, isn't it? It's perfect. She handed him a cookie decorated to look like a reindeer. Try this. He bit into it, and his expression softened. You put cardamom in the gingerbread. Korean-Nigerian fusion. Our specialty. Our specialty, he repeated, testing the words. I like the sound of that. As the impromptu party continued around them, Minjun pulled Amara aside, into the quiet of his office. Seoul glittered below them, the city transformed by lights and snow, and the particular magic of Christmas Eve. I have something for you, he said, producing a small box. Amara's heart stopped. Minjun? It's not what you think. Not yet. He opened the box, revealing a key. This is to my apartment. I want you to move in with me. I know it's fast, and I know we're still figuring this out, but I'm tired of spending nights without you. I'm tired of pretending I can go back to the way things were before you walked into my office with your cupcakes and your revolution. Amara took the key, her vision blurring with tears. This is insane. You keep saying that because you keep being insane. Is that a yes? That's a yes. She threw her arms around his neck. But I'm redecorating. Your apartment looks like a hotel room. I don't care if you paint it pink. Don't tempt me. They stood together, watching the city celebrate around them. After a moment, Minjun said quietly, I never told you what happened after that couple chose the other child, the one on Christmas Eve. Amara waited, sensing this was important. I stopped believing in good things. I decided that if I didn't want anything, I couldn't be disappointed. If I didn't love anyone, I couldn't be abandoned. His voice was raw. I built an empire on that philosophy, and I was miserable. And now? Now I'm terrified. Because I want everything. I want you. I want this business. I want a future I can't predict or control. I want to wake up on Christmas morning and feel joy instead of dread. He turned to face her. You did that. You broke into my fortress and refused to let me hide. I'm glad I did. So am I. He kissed her forehead. Thank you for being stubborn. Thank you for being brave enough to let me in. They returned to the party, to the laughter and flower and the scent of cinnamon and hope. Somewhere in the building, lawyers were drafting contracts. Prosecutors were building fraud cases. The business world was reacting to Minjun's revelations. But in that kitchen, on Christmas Eve, none of it mattered. What mattered was connection, community, the revolutionary idea that joy was worth fighting for. 3 months later, the bridge launched nationwide. Amara's Korean-Nigerian fusion desserts became an overnight sensation. The patent office ruled in her favor, awarding her full rights to her preservation technique. Hansong Industries faced multiple lawsuits and criminal charges. Taiwan resigned in disgrace. But the real victory was smaller and more profound. Minjun learned to celebrate Christmas, not with extravagance or commercial excess, but with Amara, in their kitchen, creating things together. He learned that the 7-year-old who'd been rejected wasn't too damaged to be loved. He'd just been waiting for the right person to prove it. Amara built her empire, but more importantly, she built a home. With Minjun, with their growing team, with a community of people who believed in what they were creating. And every morning, without fail, Minjun ate one of Amara's cupcakes, not because of data or nutritional value or business strategy, but because they tasted like love, like belonging, like all the Christmases he'd missed, wrapped up in sugar and butter and the radical act of letting someone in. What are you thinking about? Amara asked one morning, finding him at the window, watching snow fall over Seoul. I'm thinking that I'm grateful, Minjun said simply. For you, for this, for learning that love isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing I've ever done. Amara wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his back. Want to know a secret? Always. I was terrified that day I broke into your office. I almost turned back 3 times, but I'd spent 2 years working on that formula, and I knew if I didn't try, I'd regret it forever. I'm glad you were brave. Me too. She turned him to face her. Now come on, we have a wedding cake to design. Whose wedding? Ours, obviously. Minjun's eyes widened. Is that a proposal? Someone had to do it. You were taking too long. He laughed, the sound free and unguarded. You're supposed to let me do the proposing. Too late. I already decided we're getting married. You can plan the romantic proposal later if it makes you feel better. She was already pulling him toward the kitchen. Now help me with this design. I'm thinking 7 tiers, Korean and Nigerian fusion flavors, and Amara. What? Yes. She stopped, turned. Yes, what? Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. Forever? Yes. Her smile could have lit the entire city. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Promise? Promise. They sealed it with a kiss, surrounded by flour and sugar and the scent of cinnamon. Outside, the city moved forward, indifferent to their joy. But inside that kitchen, 2 people who'd learned to trust again, to love again, to believe that good things were worth the risk, began planning their forever. And every morning after, for the rest of their lives, Minjun woke up grateful, not for success or wealth or business victories, but for the day a baker with wild hair and dangerous cupcakes crashed into his life and taught him that joy wasn't just possible, it was revolutionary.